Hi, Pete here, N6QW, and I go back to 1959 when I was first licensed, and most of my experience in those days was with vacuum tubes. And I decided to relive the days of old by building some CW transmitters. And I started off with a test bed, and you can see in the photo here a nice front panel, some tube sockets, a nice wooden board. And I tried various circuits to see what it was like to do something in 2026 that started back in 1959. 1J6 GT is a really interesting tube, and but it has a goofy power supply, 2 volts on the filaments and 135 volts on the plates. There was originally an article in August 1947 to QST called The Last Ditcher. And here you see the 1J6 is a dual triode, just a few parts, and it works out real nice on a breadboard. But it needs a really funny supply, as I said, at 2 volts DC at about a quarter of an amp and about 135 volts DC at 75 MA. And I had a little trouble building the supply, but I do have a supply for it. And when I did hook it up and tested it out, I was less than overwhelmed. So maybe I need to look at that again, but I started with the 1J6. I then moved up to a 6V6 with a Pi network, and 280 volts on the plate gave me about 1.3 watts on 40 meters. So pretty nice looking. You see I painted the panel here. Quite nice looking test bed. And here you see an aerial view of the 6V6 with the Pi network output. So we'll fast forward to May 2026 and the 6A6 Jones Oscillator. Very few parts. And this ruled the roost in the 1930s, and I decided I'd try my hand at building one of those. But then disaster struck. The 6A6 is a 7-pin tube socket, needs a 7-pin tube socket, and I ordered the wrong socket. I bought the small, and you really needed the medium. But here you can see some photos of the build, the right tube, wrong socket. So I had to take a little short break there and order a proper socket. And you'll see here in an upcoming slide where the 3 different 7-pin sockets, or actually there's 4 of them. The miniature, the 7-pin small, and then the 7-pin medium, and we needed the 7-pin medium. And that was quite a little bit of an effort to get the 7-pin medium socket installed, since the space available was almost net with the size of the socket. So we ended up actually installing the socket on top of the insulated side of a PC board, drilled holes through the board and connected the wires from either above or below, and believe it or not, that works. So that was a pretty good alternative. So upcoming here in the slide, you'll see the tube socket mounted on the base here, and we have a 3 crystal position, 3 different crystals we put in there. And in upper right-hand corner is a W3NQN low-pass filter. So here's the 6A6, getting ready for some testing here. And the information later on in the slide is the coil winding and the number of turns and the spacing, what have you. So I was kind of surprised. We reached out to about 600 miles, and with the schematic shows 400 volts DC. Don't do that. It'll blow the tube. 300 max. And at 300, I got 1.5 watts out on 40 meters, and I think you could even move it up to about 320. Here's the output signal. Pretty clean after the W3NQN. We're hitting about 25 volts, which gives us about 1.5 watts on 40 meters. So we're going to try to put this on the air and actually make some contacts, but here's some aerial photos of the completed transmitter. As you'll see, and the 10 circuit info is as on this slide. You only need 1 turn on the link coupling, and that works pretty well. But the dual section capacitor I had was 100 picofarad, and it's almost completely meshed. So if you're going to replicate this, I'd get a 150 picofarad each section. Don't forget the W3NQN filter, because link coupling is prone to harmonics. You can buy the power supply for this from Amazon for about $30, and it'll power this thing up, give you a couple watts output. Summary: low part count, reasonable output, easy to build, potential low cost, and great for emergencies. So that's something to consider. Do you have an emergency rig you can put together? But forget the tubes. POTA is the bomb. As you can see here, this could be a lot of fun doing POTA. 7.3 from N6QW.